sit back, relax, and let's have a chapter chat. If you're a fan of historical fiction, you are in for a treat today. I'm your host, Jessica Foster, joined by author Kristin Harmel. Hi there, Kristin. How's it going?
Great, Jessica. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm a big historical fiction fan, and I know that's your genre.
It sure is. I'm actually a big historical fiction fan too, so we're on the same page there.
And you have a newly released book, The Stolen Life of Colette Marceau. Let's talk a little bit about the premise of that book.
Sure. It is a story about two jewel thieves, a priceless bracelet that goes missing, and a decades-old mystery begging to be solved. So it's basically the story of a woman named Colette Marceau, who we meet for the first time right before World War II, when she's a young teenager. She is stealing jewels in the tradition of her mother. They both become active in the French Resistance and steal jewelry to help fund the French Resistance. But tragedy ensues. Her mother is arrested. Her sister disappears, never to be seen again. And then we meet Colette many years later. She is in her 80s. She's living in Boston. And the bracelet that disappeared the night that her sister disappeared and the night her mother was arrested turns up in a museum exhibit. And she realizes that if she can figure out where that bracelet has been all these years, she might finally have a chance to figure out what happened to her mother and what happened to her sister. And she, I actually should have also mentioned, is still a jewel thief. Even though she's in her late 80s, she's been stealing all these years in kind of Robin Hood style to rebalance the scales of justice.
What I enjoyed about it was seeing this, 80-something-year-old jewelry thief and how you described that. I could just picture it.
Well, you know what was kind of funny in writing the book is I realized how easy it would be for somebody at that age to steal from people who were cruel and unkind. And she only steals from people who are cruel and unkind. But the same kind of people that she targets because of their cruelty and unkindness are the kind of people who look right through somebody like that. Like they look at somebody in that age group and think, oh, that person is no use to me. They can't do anything for me. So it's kind of like the perfect disguise.
It really is the perfect disguise. What type of research did you have to do for this particular novel?
Jessica, are you trying to get me on record saying that I steal jewels now that I had to? No, I did actually do a lot of historical research into how the French Resistance was funded, how thievery contributed a little bit, how people used their various skill sets to help that cause. I did a lot of research into diamonds and jewels, and I did a lot of research into how to steal things. And so I read memoirs from jewel thieves who quite rudely didn't actually reveal their techniques in those memoirs. How rude, right? But one of the things that was most helpful in understanding how to steal something like a watch or a ring or a bracelet was watching magician sleight of hand videos. Because if you think about it, if you've been to any kind of a big magic show, there's usually some kind of a trick where they distract you and steal a watch or steal a ring or whatever. And really, jewel thieves employ the same kinds of methods if they're stealing jewels from a person's actual body. So that was very helpful too. And I should probably no longer be invited to anybody's cocktail party because I know a lot of dangerous things now.
You do. We'll have to keep an eye on you.
Exactly.
Well, it's kind of like a journalist. Sometimes when I'm doing research, I'm like, if anyone saw my search history.
Completely. Oh my gosh, the number of searches I've done on like how to murder people, like for books. But yes, it would probably look really bad if anybody came looking.
It's like, I promise, this is just for research for my profession.
Exactly.
Now, you said that this was the hardest book that you've ever written. Why?
So I outlined this book in the late summer and early autumn of 2022. And then in October 2022, I went in for my standard annual mammogram and they found a lump and I went in and had a biopsy. And I learned in October, late October 2022, that I had breast cancer. I thought I would be able to write this book as I went through my treatments. I had to go through surgery and chemotherapy and radiation. But I found as I was going through that, and I think it was a combination between the chemotherapy drugs and just the pure fear of fighting something like that, I found that there was not room in my brain for this kind of writing and this kind of story. And so I had to put it to the side. And I really worried that my ability to write wouldn't come back. It was something that was really difficult for me and really scary for me. And when all of those treatments were done, I had to find my way back to this story, but I also had to find my way back to believing that I could do it.
I understand that completely because we have something in common. I'm a breast cancer survivor as well.
Sorry that you went through that.
I'm sorry that you went through it. I'm sorry that anyone has to go through it.
Well, I think at the time I was diagnosed, all I could see were the negative ways in which it was going to change my life, right? Like the fear, the different outlook on my future, all of those things. But I think now, a few years out from the end of treatment, I can look at it and realize I think it made me a better person. I think it made me a stronger person. It made me a more introspective person. Um, so I think there are gifts in a diagnosis like that too. I mean, which is sort of a strange thing to say, but I feel like I'm better for having gone through it.
I remember wanting to share my story. I remember calling my news director and saying, I want to share this story because I want to help other women. And I remember her telling me, don't feel like you have to, but we support you if that's what you want to do.
Well, I think it's incredible that you did that because I think the more people who hear that reminder to get their mammogram, to pay attention to their own health, the better. And you and I were both diagnosed young. I mean, I think you were a little bit younger than I was, but we were at an age that you're not necessarily thinking about that yet. So I think it's a good reminder. It can happen to any of us. And I think that for you and I, it sounds like we both found strength in using our public platform to remind other people to be vigilant about their own health.
Because it's easy to get into that mindset. Why me? Why is this happening now?
Absolutely.
And there's always a purpose in the pain.
I think that too. And for me, the why me was because most of my readers are women. Many of them are in the age group that needs that reminder. And I felt like, okay, like this was why this happened to me, because I was supposed to share this story.
And I always tell people that if you are listening out there today and you're behind on your mammogram, or maybe you've never had a mammogram, please go get your mammogram. This is your reminder today.
The sooner you go, if there is something in there, if it's caught early, we're both living proof that it's very treatable. So you have to make sure that if there's anything in there, you need to find it.
It is treatable. So I'm an 8-year survivor. You're how many years now?
Almost 2.5 years.
That's amazing. Congratulations on that.
Congratulations on using your platform to do good. That's incredible. I wish more people did things like that. So good for you.
Yeah, you have to dig deep sometimes and be brave.
You do.
Just like many of the characters in your books, I feel like your characters are so brave.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I tend to write about World War II and particularly about women who find themselves in wartime and have to make a decision about whether they're going to sit back and let things happen to them or whether they're going to stand up and make a difference. And I like to think that writing those kinds of characters for all those years kind of prepared me when I was faced with the same kind of questions. Am I going to sit back and just let this happen to me? Or am I going to use this for good? Am I going to be brave? Am I going to be courageous? I think it's just a reminder that wherever we are in our lives, whatever challenges we're faced with, we can always do something to make the world better. It might be something little. It might just be a kind moment in our daily lives, but we can challenge ourselves and in doing so, make the world a better place.
I also noticed that you like to put the setting of your books in Paris a lot.
Well, the thing is, when you set books in Paris, you kind of have to go there to research. So, I mean, tough luck for me, right? No, I lived in Paris in my early 20s. It is a place that really worked its way inside my heart. It's the place I wrote my first novel. It's the place I had the courage for the first time to embrace the dream I had always had of being a novelist. It's really the place I became me. And even though I don't live there anymore, I travel there usually once a year. It is a place that never left me and a place whose history I find absolutely fascinating.
I went for the first time, fell in love with it.
It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, everything from the food to the architecture to just, I don't know, there's something that just feels different about life in that city.
It does. And I almost felt healthier when I was walking around.
Yeah. 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 It's an extraordinary place. I feel like it changes me every time. It's magic.
It's magic, and I want to go back. And my husband and I went, and my daughter was like, "You need to take me to Paris." So I said, "Okay, okay." She was at first afraid to fly. So we did a little test run and went to Washington, D.C., and she said, "Now I can go to Paris."
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, you have to take her. We actually took my son, who's 9 now, 2 years ago, and he really liked it. But I think he liked it partially because one of the things we did was to go to Disneyland Paris.
Well, that's on our list. What is your favorite book that you've ever written? Can you pick one?
Um, I get that question a lot, and it's always hard for me because it's kind of like saying, "Here are all your children, pick a favorite." Um, I will say my favorite is usually the most recent one I've written, um, because I feel like I'm still growing and developing as a writer. Like I can look back even a few books and say, I would have done this, like this, that, and this differently with what I know now. So I feel like each book represents a step forward in the evolution of me as a writer and me as a person too. So I would say probably The Stolen Life of Colette Marceau is currently my favorite. But if I had to pick a favorite from my backlist, it would either be The Book of Lost Names, which was really the book that changed my career. That one came out in 2020, or The Sweetness of Forgetting, which came out in 2012. That was my first World War II novel. And one of the main characters is a grandmother with dementia. It's about her and her granddaughter. And I was writing it as I was losing my own grandmother to dementia. So, although it's not based on my own grandmother at all, there's a lot of the relationship between us in that book. And I miss her very much. She's been gone now since 2014. But that book is like a time capsule to that period of my life. So, I think it has a deep personal meaning to me.
Oh, that is amazing that you can look back and always have that connection with this
Yeah,
book.
absolutely.
How do you think the Book of Lost Names changed your career?
Okay, so The Sweetness of Forgetting was my kind of breakout book internationally. That's the book that became a worldwide bestseller, basically everywhere but the United States. So it took a few years for my career here to catch up. But The Book of Lost Names was really my big breakout here in the US. And then people have gone back and discovered my backlist after reading that book. But that was really the one. It came out in summer of 2020. And for whatever reason, I think it just resonated with people, and it kind of brought people into my books going forward and my books going back. And it's really the one that people mention to me most often. I was doing book signings this summer for The Stolen Life of Colette Marceau, and I had this really cool experience. I was in Atlanta, and a woman came, and she said she was with her two little daughters, and her husband had driven them, I think she said 13 hours from somewhere in the Midwest, because she had wanted to meet me since the Book of Lost Names. And she had Book of Lost Names earrings, a Book of Lost Names necklace, and Book of Lost Names nails. And I was like, this is like the coolest thing I've ever
Wow.
seen. So it's a book that I think has just, for whatever reason, really resonated. And it's great. It's allowed me to reach more readers, and I think has put me in the position, like when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, to have a larger audience to reach out to and say, go get your mammogram.
And if you look back at that timeline too, you had this
Yeah.
breakout book, then your diagnosis.
Yeah. It feels meant to be, it just feels like I'm on the path I'm supposed to be on.
For sure. It's kind of similar to my career trajectory too, because I had taken a small break when my daughter was born and
Okay.
worked from home, and then got the call to get back into the news business. I
Okay.
had just started back on air in January of the year I was diagnosed, and then received the diagnosis in June.
Oh my God, you just gave me goosebumps. It was meant to be. Like you were meant to have that, if it was going to happen, you were meant to be in a position where you had that platform where you could share with people. That's incredible that even that just 6 months into that chapter of your career, you had the courage to be so public about it. I really commend you for that because I know you were really young at the time, and it's such jarring news to receive. So the fact that you sat with that for a little while and then decided to do something good with it. It's incredible. You should be really proud of that.
Well, thank you. And you should be proud of yourself as well.
Thank you.
You've done some amazing things. You have amazing work. I want to dig in a little bit into your creative process.
The ideas usually come from either something I've come across in the research or something I experienced myself or learned about myself while in Paris. So for this book, I think it was the seed of inspiration was that in my last several novels, which have dealt with the French Resistance, people were using talents in different ways to fund the French Resistance. In The Winemaker's Wife, which is set in Champagne, France, people were smuggling arms through the Champagne caves. In The Room on Rue Amélie, my 2018 book, people were sheltering Allied pilots and working on escape lines. In the Book of Lost Names, people were using forgery to forge documents to help people who were trying to escape. So I think I was just thinking about, what kind of talents could you bring to bear at a time like this? And I started thinking, how fun would it be to write about somebody who isn't just stealing jewels during World War II, but has a long tradition of jewel theft in their family, and then who feels a responsibility to carry that tradition of jewel theft forward. So I think that was kind of the seed of inspiration. But once I have an idea for a story, I really dive headfirst into the research. I read everything I can get my hands on, and then I write a very thorough outline. Some writers are pantsers, which means they fly by the seat of their pants and they don't write an outline at all. That gives me I feel so nervous even thinking about doing that. I'm such a planner. I write very long outlines. And then once I have the outline, I begin with chapter 1 and begin writing the book.
I love that you mentioned The Winemaker's Wife.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I loved that one.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
That was one where I would wake up really early in the morning before the rest of my family got up to finish it.
So sweet. Oh my gosh. Thank you for saying that. That's really nice of you.
Do you have anything else on the horizon? How often do you like to have a release?
So I have been on a book every 2 years schedule, but I have had this idea for a book that's not historical for a long time now. I've always wanted to write something in the vein of Love Actually. That's my favorite movie. I've always wanted to write sort of a Love Actually style story set in Paris. And it's taken me years of kind of toying with it in the back of my head until the idea is sort of finally solidified. So I went to my editor and I said, look, I'm not supposed to have a 2026 release. Like my next historical book should be out in 2027. But what if I wedged another book in between and we had a 2026 book and it's just not historical? And she was like, I love that. So yeah, I should have a book out next August, I believe. We're still waiting to confirm the pub date, but it should be sometime right about a year from now. It's called Meet Me in Paris. I believe that's the title. That again, not totally confirmed, but that's the working title, Meet Me in Paris. And it is 7 intertwining love stories that unfold over the course of a week in modern day Paris. One of those stories has World War II roots. So for people who come to my books for World War II, there's a little bit of a World War II storyline in there. It's 2 people who met during World War II and are being reunited kind of in the final chapter of their lives now. But it all takes place in the present day. So I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited to be doing something different. And then my 2027 book will be a return to kind of what you're used to from me, a big sweeping historical novel. But this was just really fun.
Isn't it great to stretch yourself too?
It is. It is. And I try to do that with every book. I mean, usually the stretches are smaller. Like I try to challenge myself to do something I haven't done before for the most part. But this was a bigger stretch. And I think it's part of the process of growing as a writer for me.
Yeah, because especially as creatives, we need to challenge ourselves.
We do, or otherwise you just kind of lose the passion for it, I think. I think it has to always feel a little bit risky and a little bit dangerous and like a little bit of a challenge. I think that's how we push ourselves to grow.
And you were not always an author. You had a career prior to that.
I did, but it was always in service of the idea of becoming an author. So I started off as a journalist. I wrote for magazines and newspapers briefly, but mostly magazines. But it was always because I thought, okay, I'm going to be a novelist someday. I'm just too young to do it now. In retrospect, I wish I had tried writing a book sooner. I think I thought like, oh, I need more life experience before I try this. And now I realize, gosh, like if I had wanted to write a book as a teenager, I wish I had done it. I mean, I could have written about being a teenager. But yeah, I sold my first book when I was 24, so it's been. Gosh, I sold my first book in 2004, and it came out in 2006. So I'm actually coming up on my 20th anniversary of being published. It was February of 2006. So I've been doing this for a long time, and I worked as a journalist while writing my first 6 books too. So I have basically been a professional author since I was 24, but there was an overlap with my journalism career as well, because at the beginning of my writing career, I wasn't making enough to support myself. So I was also working, the primary job as a journalist and just doing this on the side.
Is it a hard industry to break into?
It really is. Yeah, it is. But I also like that it took me a long time to break in and that I kind of had to work my way up because I never take any of it for granted now.
That's true. And I guess, do some authors just have some overnight success?
Some people just have huge debuts right out of the gate, and I think that's wonderful. I mean, it's so great when the world gets to discover a brand new literary talent that we've never heard from before. And that's wonderful. And you can always point to books that are these amazing, successful debuts. But I think for me, I really like the stories of people who have been chipping away at this, perfecting their craft, and they finally, after years of working at it, finally find their audience. I think that just puts you in a better position for career longevity in a lot of cases. And that certainly doesn't apply to every debut author. Like so many debut authors are fantastic and go on to have wonderful careers. But I really do think there is something to be said for kind of taking your knocks early on, and realizing that it doesn't come easily and that you have to be a partner in your own success.
Oh, I love that. I love that perspective. That's
Yeah, thanks. Took me a while to get here, but yeah, I mean to get to that perspective. But thank you.
Oh, I understand that. Yeah, sometimes you're like, why can't it just be like this and that and this?
Be easy. Exactly. Yes. It is interesting to look back now and think, at the time when early in my career, I was so frustrated and, waiting for that big break and it wasn't happening. But like looking back now, I feel like it happened exactly as it was meant to. And I try to remember that. I try to remember going forward that I can't always question things not happening on the schedule I want them to happen on. Like sometimes there is a reason for them to happen the way that they do.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's so true. And when you look back on it later, you're like, oh, that's why that happened.
That's why. Exactly. Yes.
And I'm sure you're a big reader when you're not writing.
I am. For 5 years now, have been co-hosting a show called Friends in Fiction. It's a web show and a podcast. And we also have a big reader group on Facebook with about 300,000 members, believe it or not. But I work with Mary Kay Andrews, Christy Woodson Harvey, and Patty Callahan Henry on that. The 4 of us host it together. We're all New York Times bestselling authors, and every week we welcome another author to our show. So I do a ton of reading for that show to both pick the authors that we're going to host and then to read the books of the people who we do invite on, because we want to have a really in-depth discussion with them, just like you and I are doing now, about their books, about their careers, about their lives. So I do a ton of reading for that. I do a ton of reading for blurbing other people's books, which is giving those little like quotes on the front of a book. I feel like that's an important part of what you have to do for other authors in this industry. And then I just read for joy. I mean, I always have an audiobook going, which is usually just something I want to listen to that's separate from anything related to work. Like I'm listening to Nora Ephron's Heartburn right now. It's much older book, but I have always wanted to reread it. I read it about 20 years ago, and it's just resonating very differently with me right now.
I've always loved to read too. I have this childhood memory of always when we would go to the store, like the grocery store, I would have a book in my hand.
Oh, that's funny. Yep, you're my kind of person. I'm the same way.
And my parents would be like, okay, let's watch where we're going.
When I was little, when my mom would take us to the grocery store, you know how you get the free cookie at the bakery. My mom was always very healthy, so everyone else like was being rolled around in the shopping carts with their cookie, and my mom would make us get a slice of cheese from the deli. So I would have my slice of cheese and my book in the other hand, and I'm sure I looked like the strangest kid in the entire world, nibbling my cheese and reading my book.
Well, another funny memory that I have, we were going to a college football game, and it was about an hour from our home, and we were driving there, and so I was reading my book on the way, and I was going to take it into the stadium with me. Yeah. And my dad said, you might not really be able to read while we're at a college football game.
That is very funny.
Yeah. So, if you love to read, you love to read.
That is true. It sounds like you and I are cut from the same cloth. Absolutely.
What other things do you like to do, Kristin?
Well, I live in the Orlando area. I like to go to Disney World. I have a 9-year-old son, and it's something that we really enjoy doing together. Not even really even going to ride the rides for the most part. We just like walking around, just enjoying being there. So that's fun. I love to travel. Gosh, I don't really have any other spare time. I like to cook, I guess. I like wine. I enjoy like sampling wine and learning about wine. So those are some other interests of mine.
So we really are cut from the same cloth because I live in Florida too, but the other end and the panhandle of Florida.
Yeah.
But we are also season pass holders to Disney.
Oh, well, we'll have to get together sometime when you're here.
We will, because I love it.
Good. Me too. Me too. Yeah, we're always down there. It's crazy.
Yeah, talk about joy, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Now, Friends in Fiction, you started that during the pandemic.
We did. Our first show was in April of 2020. We had no idea we were creating something that would last, that we'd still be doing 5.5 years later. When we started it, it was because we had canceled book tours because of the pandemic. And we were concerned about reaching our readers, but more so we were concerned about the survival of independent bookstores, because a lot of these stores were, of course, forced to close their doors. And a lot of them relied heavily on the revenue they would get from author events. So oftentimes if an author does a book event at a store, it's book with ticket. They maybe sell 100 books, 120 books, and that's a big part of their monthly income at the store. So we were worried about what was going to happen to these stores if those author events were not happening. And so we began it as something to support independent bookstores and to remind people to keep shopping from their local stores, even if their stores were closed, because a lot of stores pivoted immediately to shipping books just as a way to continue making an income. So that was the idea for the show. We thought we would do it for 7 weeks. I remember we said we'll do it until Memorial Day, because by Memorial Day, things will be back to normal. And you remember 2020, by Memorial Day, things were not, in fact, back to normal. But by that point, we had hundreds of people tuning in every week. Our audience was growing every week. And we said, I think this is something we should keep doing. And so the first 7 episodes were just the 4 of us, plus our other original host, Mary Alice Monroe. And beginning with our 8th episode, we began inviting other authors on the show. Our first guest was Kristin Harmel. We had a ton of technical difficulties, but we have the technical side of it has gotten much smoother since then. And yeah, we love it. It's a great way to stay in touch with what people are reading. It's a great way to continue communicating with our readers, and it's a real back and forth. And it's a joy to have other authors on the show and be able to talk about their books. I mean, again, just like you do. I mean, this is such a fun thing, I think, to talk to other authors about their books.
It is so enjoyable, and we have enjoyed talking with you.
It was such a pleasure talking with you, and I love that that we didn't just talk about books. We talked about life, because it's all tied in together, right? I mean, we enjoy books because we see our own lives in there. We can see what another person's life looks like. So it's great that the conversation unfolded this way. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you, Kristin, and thank you for listening as well. You've been listening to Chapter Chat. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Happy reading!